Aloha, I'm Yanji Denise. Welcome to Get Your House in Order, the show where we help you take care of the things that matter most. In this series, we cover a wide range of topics from health and wellness to financial readiness and preparing for every phase of life. Today, we are talking about divorce. Now, not only can it be emotionally difficult, it can also be financially devastating as well. We'll speak with a divorce attorney later on in today's program, but first, I'm joined by Paulette Ito of Hawaiian Financial Federal Credit Union. You know, Paulette, we focus on events that can impact our financial well-being, and divorce certainly is one of them.
Absolutely. You know, life happens, and sometimes it's positive and sometimes it's negative, but we need to be prepared and be able to move forward.
Okay, we don't tend to think of this as part of Get Your House in Order, but just so folks have a sense of what is Get Your House in Order, what is the Ho'okele Guidebook?
Get Your House in Order is organization for life, and it's being able to provide you a roadmap for all the things that you may need so that you become resilient to whatever will come your way, and divorce is one of those.
Okay, we are in 1.4, season 4 of the show, 1.4 of the guidebook. Tell us what's in this guidebook.
This guidebook covers miscellaneous. It covers things that you may not, we divided everything up into the past, present, and future, and now this is miscellaneous. So there are some things that just didn't fit nicely in one of those categories, and divorce was one of them, talking about benefits that you may have from organizations that you've been with, working with the community. Those are the things that you'll find in this section.
And how do people get started? Where do they find the guidebook? And you know, if you haven't gotten started and you're looking at 4 volumes, it can feel a little intimidating. What is your advice to folks?
Just start. Take a look at it, download all the guidebooks, and just start filling out the things that you need that's handy for you right now, or things that you already know. Because we decided to put it into 4 different sections so that we could chunk it, so it would be easier for people. Otherwise, it would seem very overwhelming. But if you're just starting now, just dive right in and start doing it, because it's going to be very helpful.
It is a free resource. Where can people get it?
Absolutely, it's free. You come to our website, hificu.com. We have a whole page dedicated to Get Your House in Order, and the guidebooks is there. So it's hificu.com/GYHO. GYHO is for Get Your House in Order.
Okay, thanks for being here. Coming up, we're going to hear from a divorce attorney on how best to protect your assets. But first, let's learn from someone who hopes that their experience can help you in life.
Aloha, my name is Shannon Hackett. I'm a family law attorney with Coates, Fry & Hackett. I'm here to give you some tips on working with a family law attorney. Initially, when searching for your attorney, your family law attorney, ask your friends, your family, somebody you know who's been through a divorce or going through the divorce process. Divorce is a sensitive topic, so you know, somebody might not want to tell their close friends and family right away, and that's okay. You know, go on the internet, do a search, that's fine. But you'd be surprised at how many people come to a family law attorney having heard of them through a hairstylist, or you know, your nail tech, or your therapist, or so really, or a real estate agent even. So once you found your attorney, you know, whether it's a free phone consultation you're having over the phone or an in-person consultation, you're going to want to ask questions. You'll find that by asking questions and hearing your attorney's answers, you'll come to trust and respect them. That's who you want to, you know, hire. That's who you want to retain, is somebody that you trust and respect. I think that you'll find that the process of trusting and respecting an attorney happens as they're answering your questions. So ask questions, be ready. Sometimes it's understandable that you just get served out of the blue and you might not have any questions, but that's okay. You need to find an attorney who's gonna be able to adapt to what you need at that time. It may be that you got served out of the blue and you are completely overwhelmed. Then your attorney should be able to say, hey, okay, let me take the reins, I'll ask the questions, and we'll go from there. Sometimes you have somebody coming in that already knows exactly what they want, how they want it, they've been thinking about this divorce a long time, then no problem. You know, your attorney should be able to answer your questions there too. The next tip would be to be honest. Dirty little secrets come out. So you definitely want your attorney to be prepared if that's going to be alleged against you. You know, sometimes as much as you want to fight over what you think is fair, you might have to let it go if it means that the cost of the fight is going to be more than what you're fighting for. I think that's important, and when you're looking for an attorney, those are the kinds of questions you want to ask and things you want to talk about with your attorney. Does what they're saying align with what you want? And in the end of all of this, you want to get out of this with the least collateral damage. And especially if you have children, you want what's in their best interest, and you don't want a long, drawn-out custody battle. Lastly, get your house in order by keeping your documents organized. Work with your family law attorney to obtain the documents you may need for your case, and also work with them to understand what you'll need at the end of your divorce. I hope these tips help you better navigate your divorce process.
Divorce finances. The financial impacts of divorce are significant as expenses can immediately double in the aftermath. Pensions are considered a marital asset, as are Social Security benefits, although special rules apply. It's best to carefully review assets prior to a divorce, as both parties are required to be transparent with their finances during the process.
For all your money needs, Hawaiian Financial Federal Credit Union is here for you. Visit hificu.com.
Welcome back. We are joined now by Kendal Luke, an attorney with more than 2 decades of experience helping clients navigate divorce. We want to focus on finances today. What kind of an impact can divorce have on someone financially?
I mean, one of the biggest things financially is, obviously with a divorce, it goes from one household to 2 households. So immediately the expenses double. There could be decreases in income, maybe because one party may have to take off of work earlier or things like that. But the divorces can have significant impacts, and I think, one of the issues that we're having here is, with parties having real estate and with them refinancing a couple of years ago at much lower rates. I think a lot of people are shocked when one party has to move out or if the parties have to sell.
Oh, interesting. And what about other benefits like pension, Social Security, medical coverage? How does that all happen? How does that get divvied up in a divorce?
As far as the pensions, are concerned, it's a marital asset, so those can be divided based off the number of years of service and also the overlap of the marriage, so that can be divided. As far as Social Security is concerned, that's a different thing altogether. That as far as your Social Security benefits, they should be the same. But as far as the other spouse that might have less Social Security, there are some rules that allow them, to get a portion. Not a portion. I take that back. They're entitled to the benefits based off of the other spouse.
Okay, we're focusing solely on the financial aspect. We know that divorce is a complicated issue, but when you're looking at this, when a client comes to you and says, I think I want to get a divorce, what do you tell them in terms of finances of how to get their life in order?
As far as finances, I think a good way is definitely to take a look at their assets and as far as their pay is concerned. I guess other things also is if they have access to their spouse's income, that can help out a lot also, so that the total financial picture is there before you come in the office. There are a lot of situations where one party is the one that handles the finances primarily, so the more information you can get, the better prepared people can be.
And when you're going through that process, let's say one person is the one who handled all the money, do they have to disclose all the assets that exist? I mean, there could be stuff squirreled away that maybe the other partner doesn't know about.
I think both parties need to be honest about whatever is out there, and in the event that if you are the party that didn't handle the finances, there are legal rules and procedures to get that information.
Right, and the longer, of course, you drag it out, the more expensive it can be. What do you consider, if there can be, a good divorce?
I mean, I guess a good divorce is when the assets and debts are divided equally, and above that, I think for the parties to get along, especially if they have children. I think that's a really that's a great divorce where people can move on in a fair and equitable manner and be peaceful with each other.
It is such a emotionally charged circumstance. What kind of advice do you give your clients as they start to navigate through that process?
Yes, it is. I mean, I'm not a psychologist, or I'm not a I'm not a
therapist. I'm sure you can turn into a therapist at times,
yes.
though, right?
But I do say there's no harm in actually seeing somebody, as far as a psychologist or a mental health care provider, to help you navigate, as far as the mental and emotional standpoint, because it's a major life event. So I definitely tell my clients that there's no harm, or there's no shame in it. I think there's a lot of people that think, oh yeah, I don't need to see somebody, but I think it's very helpful for people to talk to somebody during a stressful time.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Okay, much more with Kendal Luke. Our conversation is just getting started. Stay with us. Welcome back to Get Your House in Order, where today we are speaking with attorney Kendal Luke, who specializes in divorce. Let's talk about some of the things that people can get hung up on. I mean, what are the sort of sticking points that you see in a typical divorce?
I mean, some typical things that we see maybe might not necessarily be relevant to the court, such as extramarital affairs and infidelity. Sometimes those can get away in as far as getting toward the goal of divorce and trying to smooth things out. It just adds a layer to makes the divorce case more expensive. If they can just stay focused on what the legal issues that are in front of them, they can make things go much smoother.
Typically, how long does it take to go through that process?
Right now, as far as the divorce is concerned, if people agree on things, they can get done pretty quickly. I've had cases with no assets and no kids. I mean, I take that back. As far as they do have assets, but they have no children. I've had cases get done within a week.
A week? Wow.
As far as cases that have children, I've had cases that we've been able to get done in a month. Typically, it takes about maybe 6 to 8 weeks if they have a complete and total agreement after we file the divorce case. On the other hand, as far as what to expect now, if it's a contested divorce case, we're looking probably at, right now, probably maybe a year and a half.
Wow.
Or more to get a divorce case done on Oahu.
And is that because there's just so much back and forth?
That's correct, yes. Yeah, just to be sure, I mean, it is on Oahu that it's taking longer, and the court system is busy.
Oh, I see. And typically when you're counseling someone through this, what do you tell them about why it's important to get this done quickly?
I mean, I think, through the years, there have been some great judges that we've had on the family law bench, and they said it's always been their priority to get cases done sooner. And it's more for the emotional health of just everybody, to help them move on and treat each other better in the future. But just overall, it's just much easier if people can stay focused and get the cases done.
Let's talk about your client profile. Do you tend to have people who are, who gets divorced, if you will? Younger, older, what do you see?
I think the divorces, it just runs through the ranges from everything. It's interesting to see cases where both parties are born in this century, but by the same standpoint, we also have divorce clients in their 70s.
70s, really?
Yes.
Wow, and that must be very difficult to untangle, because I would imagine that they've been together for some time.
That's correct, yes. There's households of goods if somebody needs to sell a house, we have cases where what are they going to do with 30 or 40 years of things in a house, and how are they going to dispose of that?
Wow, interesting. Let's say that they have gone through that process and now they are ready to move on and perhaps find a new partner. What is your advice in terms of remarrying and how long one should wait, and can that affect the divorce agreement?
I think the only way it may affect the divorce agreement is if there's provisions in the divorce decree that say, if that one party is going to be getting spousal support, and in the event somebody gets married, the spousal supports end. So that'd be like the only time when anybody would actually have to notify the former spouse that they're getting remarried. But it also can have some effects on Social Security benefits. I know we just touched upon the issues of some elderly couples getting divorced. There are certain rules that are in place that if they're married for a long enough period of time, that they may be entitled to Social Security based on their spouse's years of service. And if they get remarried, that Social Security benefit might stop.
Wow, that can be complicated though, because the person wants to move on with their life and get married, but they could hurt the former spouse.
Actually, the Social Security doesn't affect the other spouse at all. Yeah, so if you're I guess if it's the spouse that's getting the Social Security,
you still get it.
You're always entitled to your Social Security, but
Got
as
it.
far as if it's based on the other side, there's special rules that one party might not get it.
Wow, so many things to consider. Okay, stay with us. We're going to have much more, including the one piece of advice he has for anyone considering getting remarried. What about a prenuptial agreement? Stay with us.
Long's Drugs is always here for Hawaii, providing your family with local favorites, accessible health and wellness services to keep you safe and healthy. Make Long's a part of your day.
Welcome back. We are speaking today with attorney Kendal Luke about divorce. Now, tell me, when we're thinking about re-entering a new relationship, or perhaps getting married for the first time for folks who are watching this and are not married yet, what is your advice about a prenup?
I have no advice as far as getting a prenup at all, but if the parties do and the couples do, then our office does do prenuptial agreements. I think the number one piece of advice as far as a prenuptial agreement is to give sufficient amount of time for the other party to review the document and sufficient amount of time for the other party to also get an attorney. There's no hard and fast rule in the state of Hawaii, not like other states like California that have a week deadline, but generally we recommend to kind of go like California and have that done at least a week in advance. There's some other things to also keep in mind with that. If the other spouse's first language is not English, that we hire a translator, and to also give sufficient amount of time to have a translator to review that document as well with the other party's attorney.
I mean, given that you get to see the other side of the equation, right? You see the prenup and you see the divorce. When people have those agreements in place, I would imagine it makes the proceedings a lot easier.
It actually does. It actually does. So that is a benefit of having a prenuptial agreement. There still can be fights regarding the prenuptial agreement, but it does generally make the cases go much smoother.
I think some people might think, well, I don't have a lot of money, why do I need that? Is there a certain threshold or a profile of a kind of person who should be protecting themselves, or does it sort of run the gamut?
I guess it can run the gamut. I mean, obviously, it's the cases where maybe there's assets that are involved, but maybe some other future considerations such as, somebody's future income, or that somebody might make more money, or sometimes, I think a lot of times it has to do with the premarital assets, maybe inheritance and things like that.
Yeah, I would imagine though having that conversation has to be hard, because you're entering to this phase of life. You're supposed to be trusting that person with everything, right? That they're your partner for life. How do you advise people who do want to go that route about how they have that conversation with their future spouse?
I think just what we touched upon as far as, nobody wants to be divorced, but it does make it it does help make things go smoother. But if it's something that they're trying to protect and it's important to them, or sometimes it's other family members, I guess it's an important thing, and they might as well take care of that before rather than after and get that out of the way.
Right, and for the folks who don't have that in place, what happens to your assets if you come into a marriage? Let's say I own a house, I get married, and then I get divorced. Is my spouse then entitled to my house if I owned it before we got married?
There are special rules as far as being entitled to equity in the property that you had before, but I think generally, assets that you have before the marriage are going to be considered separate assets at the time of the divorce. But once again, I think it does take some legal analysis afterwards to, the advice of a lawyer afterwards can be helpful to take a look at that. I guess the one interesting thing that we do have on that topic is as far as assets and that you had before. Nobody's thinking about getting divorced, but the cases that we have, we do look back to see how much was in the bank at the time of the divorce, or what the values of retirement and other accounts were. And those pieces of information can be very useful. But once again, it's kind of hard when nobody's planning to get a divorce when they're getting married, right? But those are some of the pieces of information that we look for. Financial information from the past, and sometimes people have a hard time looking for it or tracking it down.
So, as we're wrapping up, as someone's, going through this process and thinking, okay, this is the way I want to go, what is the first piece of advice you have for them as they start to navigate that process?
I mean, I think the number one thing before even coming to a lawyer's office would be to just make sure they really want to be divorced. It's not the job of friends or family. It's that person that needs to make that decision. It's not my job to convince somebody to get a divorce. But as far as the finances, just to make sure that you have as much information as possible, that's very helpful. Makes my job much easier if the more complete financial picture is there.
Okay, great advice all around. Thank you so much for joining us. And thank you for joining us. Remember, you can review this show or watch it again by finding us on YouTube or listen as a podcast wherever you get your podcasts. I'm Yanji Denise. Until next time, take care and aloha.